man, it feels good to be back talking some football, but of course, when it comes to Miami, it's never just about football, right? Every time you think the Dolphins are ready to take that next step, something dramatic happens, and boom, the headlines write themselves. And this week, the bomb finally dropped. Chris Grier, the longtime general manager, got the boot. 25 years connected to that organization, and not a single playoff win to show for it. I mean, let's be honest, nobody's exactly shocked. It's been a long time coming. You can't be part of the one constant through decades of mediocrity and still expect patience forever. What's interesting, though, is that owner Stephen Ross finally decided to start cleaning house, or at least kind of. He went after the top first, moving on from the GM instead of instantly pointing fingers at Coach Mike McDaniel. But that raises the big question everyone's asking right now. How deep does this problem actually go? Because, let's face it, the Dolphins haven't lacked talent. They've lacked direction. And when your owner has been chasing quick fixes and half measures for years, it's hard for any real football vision to take root. This team has been through more rebuilds than most franchises have had playoff appearances, and at the end of the day, that starts at the top. Now, speaking of McDaniel, yeah, he's still around. But for how long? You watch him in press conferences, and he looks like a man waiting for the inevitable. He's saying all the right things, focusing on the Bills, keeping his team motivated, controlling what he can control. But you can see it in his face, that look of someone who knows the clock's ticking. The interim general manager, Champ Kelly, might have a legitimate shot to stick around, depending on how the rest of the season plays out. But if he does, will he really want to keep McDaniel tied to his name? Because, let's be real, we've already seen what McDaniel can do, and it's hard to argue that he's the guy to lead this team into the next era. And then there's Tua. Man, Tua's situation is messy. He's got that big guaranteed contract coming up next year, over $50 million, so it's not like Miami can just move on easily. Whether he's the starter or just a placeholder while they look to draft someone new, it feels like the team is stuck in limbo. McDaniel was asked point-blank if Tua might get benched, and his response wasn't exactly a ringing endorsement. You know when a coach says, "He's my quarterback for now"? Yeah, that tells you everything. The truth is, Tua isn't a bad quarterback. The guy's put up numbers. He's at stretches where he's led the league in passing yards. But you can feel the regression. It's not even just about stats. It's about energy, confidence, leadership. Around that locker room, the vibe's different. The veterans have seen it all, and nothing surprises them anymore. Fans? They've moved from angry to numb. The dysfunction has been going on for so long that chaos almost feels normal. You talk to Dolphins fans this week, and there's this mix of relief and frustration. Relief that finally something changed, that Grier's gone, but frustration that it wasn't a total reset. It's like tearing down half a house and leaving the other half rotting. Fans are saying, look, if we're going to rebuild, let's actually rebuild. Get a new general manager, a new coach, a new quarterback. Clean slate. Because right now, they're stuck in this weird middle ground where nothing feels certain, and after decades of disappointment, the patience has worn thin. Now, as for this weekend, the Bills are coming to town, and honestly, it might feel more like a home game for Buffalo. You know how Bills Mafia travels, and Miami fans? Let's just say they're not exactly racing to fill those seats right now. After that ugly loss to the Ravens, it's hard to imagine much optimism. The Dolphins still play hard, I'll give them that, but talent-wise, they just can't hang. When Baltimore was rolling, Miami had no answer, and Buffalo's built in that same mold. Physical, fast, relentless. Unless the Bills self-destruct, this one could get ugly fast. But beyond Sunday's game, the bigger story here is the future. Stephen Ross has a chance to finally reset everything, to bring in a general manager with a clear vision and give him real control. That's what the Panthers did in hockey, right? They hired Bill Zito, let him make the tough decisions, and 2 Stanley Cups later, look where they are. The Dolphins need that kind of courage. Someone who's not afraid to tear it down and build it right. And maybe that means tanking. Maybe it means chasing that top 5 draft pick and finding the quarterback who can finally lead this franchise out of the wilderness. Because if there's one thing that's become clear in Miami, this team doesn't just need tweaks. It needs a brand new identity. All right, let's pick this up right where we left off, because what's happening in Miami right now is more than just another losing season. This feels like a breaking point, the kind of moment where a franchise either completely collapses or finally figures out who it wants to be. You can sense it in the air down there. The fans, the players, even the media, everyone's tired of the same story being replayed every few years. A new general manager, a new coach, a bit of early excitement, then the same old dysfunction taking over. And here we are again. What makes this situation different, though, is that there's really nowhere left to hide. The firing of Chris Grier removes one of the longest-standing constants in that organization. For more than 2 decades, he was part of every rebuild, every false start, every disappointing finish. And while he wasn't always the man in charge, he was always there, shaping decisions that never quite worked out. When a franchise hasn't won a playoff game in a quarter of a century, it's impossible to defend the status quo. So, in a way, this move signals something bigger. It's not just about accountability, it's about survival. Still, when you look closer, it's hard to believe this team is ready to fully reset. Stephen Ross, the owner, has been the common denominator behind all the chaos. The endless coaching changes, the messy front office drama, the half-hearted rebuilds, it all circles back to him. Every time Miami seems to take a step forward, Ross finds a way to pull them back 2 more. He's chased big names, thrown money at temporary fixes, and meddled just enough to keep the franchise stuck in neutral. You can't build stability when your leadership doesn't understand patience. And that's why, even with Grier gone, Dolphins fans aren't celebrating yet. Because they've seen this movie before, and they know how it ends. Now, the McDaniel situation is fascinating. On one hand, he's one of the more likable figures in football. Quirky, smart players like him. But the results speak louder than the sound bites. Miami hasn't looked like a team that believes in itself. They're inconsistent, fragile, and constantly caught in distractions that have nothing to do with the actual game. McDaniel looks like a man trying to keep his head above water, saying all the right things, but showing the body language of someone who knows the walls are closing in. He talks about focus, about blocking out noise, about controlling what he can, but when your team is losing, those words start sounding hollow. You can't coach confidence when you don't seem to have any yourself. And then there's Tua. It's impossible to talk about the Dolphins without diving into that situation. When he first came in, there was real hope. The tank for Tua era was supposed to be the start of something special. But now, a few years and one massive contract later, it feels more like the beginning of another cycle. You watch him play, and you see flashes of talent, accuracy, poise, but it's all inconsistent. He doesn't look like a quarterback who elevates his team. He looks like one who needs everything around him to be perfect just to survive. And when you're getting paid more than $50 million next season, surviving isn't good enough. Leadership is another piece of this puzzle. You can have all the talent in the world, but if your locker room doesn't believe in its leaders, both coach and quarterback, everything falls apart. From what's been coming out of Miami, the vibe is off. Players don't seem inspired. The veterans have that look of guys who've seen this story too many times. And that matters because football teams feed off emotion. You can't fake energy. You can't fake belief. The crazy thing is, while all this chaos is going on, the rest of the AFC East is evolving. The Bills are still fighting for playoff position. The Patriots are finally showing signs of finding a rhythm again. And even the Jets, for all their issues, seem to have a clearer plan for their future. Meanwhile, the Dolphins are stuck debating whether they even have the right people in charge. That's not how you build a winning culture. Winning organizations don't spend every offseason wondering who's getting fired next. They focus on football, not damage control. Now, let's talk about the fans. Dolphins fans are some of the most loyal and patient in the league. Maybe too patient. But this season feels different. There's a numbness now. The passion's still there, but it's buried under layers of frustration and disbelief. You walk into Hard Rock Stadium, and it's hard to tell if it's a home crowd or a visiting takeover. Baltimore fans last week, Bills fans this week. They're showing up in droves because they know Miami's not putting up much of a fight. The apathy has set in, and that's dangerous. When fans stop caring, when they stop believing, That's when a franchise truly hits rock bottom. And yet, there's a strange sense of cautious hope in all this. The firing of Greer might be that small spark, the sign that maybe, just maybe, the organization is finally ready to change course. But for that hope to mean something, the Dolphins have to follow through. They can't just replace names and keep the same bad habits. They have to start from the ground up. A new general manager with full control, a new head coach with a clear philosophy, and eventually a quarterback who can command respect in the locker room and on the field. That's what real rebuilding looks like. And yes, that might mean losing a lot. But sometimes losing with purpose is better than floating in mediocrity. The Panthers figured that out in hockey. They brought in Bill Zito, gave him the power to make bold moves, and within a few years they were hoisting the Stanley Cup. The Dolphins could do the same if they finally commit. No more patch jobs, no more shortcuts. Just a real plan, a real identity. Because right now, Miami doesn't have one. You watch them play, and you can't tell what kind of team they want to be. Are they built around speed and creativity? Are they trying to be a physical, defensive team? Nobody knows, and that confusion starts with leadership. Until that's fixed, the results on the field will never change. So as the Bills head into South Florida this weekend, the contrast couldn't be clearer. One franchise has its house in order, its vision, its culture. The other is searching for one. And while the scoreboard on Sunday might tell one story, the bigger one is already written. The Dolphins are at crossroads. Tear it all down, rebuild from the foundation, and finally learn from decades of mistakes, or keep patching holes until the whole thing collapses again. And that's where the hope lies for Dolphins fans. Not in this season, not even in the next one, but in the possibility that this time might finally be different. That maybe firing Chris Greer was the first real sign that ownership understands what needs to be done. That maybe, just maybe, they're ready to stop pretending this team is close and start building it the right way from the ground up. Because the truth is, the Dolphins don't need another miracle. They just need stability, leadership, and a plan that lasts longer than a news cycle. Until then, the rest of the league will keep watching the same story play out. A talented team that can't get out of its own way. And Bills fans, heading into this weekend, will probably enjoy every minute of it. Because for them, this rivalry isn't just about football anymore. It's about watching one franchise finally find its identity while the other keeps searching for one. Before we dive back in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest Buffalo Bills updates straight to your screen. And hey, don't hold back. Let us know your thoughts on today's news down in the comments. In a move that has sent shockwaves through the football world, the NFL has officially acknowledged what insiders are calling a grotesque error in the awarding of one of its most significant titles. And in an unprecedented turn of events, the championship has been returned to the Buffalo Bills. The announcement, made late last night, has stirred a storm of speculation and whispers across locker rooms and sports bars alike, with fans struggling to process what could be the most controversial reversal in recent league history. Sources close to the league say the error was discovered during a routine review of game footage and statistical data, revealing a miscalculation that had previously cost the Bills the championship. While the league has remained tight-lipped about the exact nature of the mistake, insiders hint that a combination of officiating oversights and scoring discrepancies may have led to the original Miz Award. The revelation has sparked a flurry of discussions among analysts, former players, and pundits, many questioning how such a glaring mistake could have gone unnoticed for so long. The Bills' locker room, according to leaked reports, erupted in a mixture of disbelief and elation. Players who had long carried the sting of a title that was unjustly taken are now reportedly preparing to celebrate what many see as the validation of years of hard work and perseverance. Social media has exploded with hashtags, memes, and debates as fans from all corners of the league weigh in on what is being called the correction heard around the NFL. Sports bars in Buffalo are already rumored to be planning all-night celebrations, anticipating a victory parade that might rival any in recent memory. League officials have emphasized that this decision, while corrective, is part of a broader initiative to ensure transparency and accuracy in how championships are awarded moving forward. Some critics, however, warn that the reversal sets a complicated precedent, raising questions about the legitimacy of past titles and the potential for future disputes. Meanwhile, the ripple effects are being felt across rival teams, with the sudden reshuffling of historical records prompting heated discussions about playoff integrity and officiating accountability. As the news continues to reverberate, one thing is clear. The Buffalo Bills, long considered underdogs in this dramatic saga, have emerged as the ultimate beneficiaries of a league finally willing to admit its mistake. Whether this moment will be remembered as a triumphant correction or a controversial footnote in NFL history remains to be seen. But for now, the Bills and their loyal fans are savoring a vindication decades in the making, a championship reclaimed, and a story that will be told for years to come. That's a wrap for now. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of all things Buffalo Bills, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. We'd love to hear what you think in the comments. See you in the next update.